Welcome to Gruesome, your horrific true crime podcast. I'm Connie, along with the young and the restless Meg. I've been thinking about soap operas. Tonight, she is going to tell us all about Joanne Dennehy.
This case is kind of like a soap opera. So
Oh, I didn't even
sometimes
know.
when you do my nicknames, you nail it without even knowing that you're gonna nail it.
Uh,
When we were doing we were talking about doing the tour of Europe that we're on right now, I got a random message from my cousin in England, and he's an actor, and he was on the show in England called called Britain's Most Evil Killers. And he played Colin Ireland in one episode, and he played Gary Stretch in another episode. And when I was there visiting, he showed me the Colin Ireland one, but I hadn't heard of the other one, so I Googled it, and I was like, oh, this is my next episode. And it worked out pretty nicely.
Well, before you start, I think we should add, as usual, that Gruesome is a Zencaster sponsored podcast. If you're listening to us thinking that you should start a podcast, you should. Zencaster makes it really easy. Go to zencaster.com/pricing, use promo code gruesome with a capital G, and get 30% off your first 3 months.
Yeah,
And
do it. I got excited. Sorry.
yeah, no, it's okay. We've been getting a lot of messages of people who are using Zencaster, and the user friendliness really speaks for itself. So do it. It's
Do
easy.
it.
But anyways, go ahead.
No, that's all. I mean, I just to jump right back in. It was very interesting that it was kind of a random, hey, I was in this show and I was like, oh, that's convenient because I need an episode from Europe and that is going to check all my boxes right there. Worked out pretty lovely.
Check, check, check.
Check, check, check. So, trigger warnings for this episode: domestic violence, murder, alcoholism, drug addiction, self-harm, sexual violence, and sadomasochism.
Oof.
Yeah, it's quite a ride we're going to go for tonight. And I do want to tell you the book that I read about it because it was very detailed. It was Love of Blood.
Love
Love of
of
Blood by Christopher Berry D. And he's
oof.
interviewed like a ton of serial killers. But
We should interview him.
he made this note in the foreword, and he said serial killers are control freaks who try to manipulate everyone they come into contact with. And I pretty much agree with that. I think we've talked about it before. But I think it's a good reminder, especially for this case, because the serial killer is a psychopath. Not that they aren't all psychopaths, but she's one of 4 modern women to receive a natural whole life sentence in England.
Oh, wow. That's pretty rare.
And the other ones were Rose West, Mira Hindley, and Beverly Allett. So just really the worst of the worst,
Yeah.
guys.
When you add them to that group, it honestly tells you everything you need to know. We don't need to listen to the rest of the
We know that this
We know.
lady is a big a-hole. And that being said, Joanne Dennehy was born August 29th, 1982. Virgo, because I know you were wondering. She was born to her mother, Kathleen, and her father, Kevin. They lived in Harpenden, and their life was absolutely normal. Nothing weird. Her mom was a manager at the grocery store. Her dad was a security guard. She had a younger sister named Maria, and they spent a lot of time playing, just doing regular sibling stuff. And as far as they know, Joanne was never out there mutilating animals. There was no fire setting or bedwetting. Nothing really strange.
Oh,
Her
wow.
Yeah. Her teachers recall that she's a pretty good student. She played netball and hockey, and her parents paid for her to attend private music lessons. And because we've been teenage girls once in our lives, we know that being a teenage girl, there might be a little bit of drama. at times.
Just a little bit.
Some rebellion. And we could probably cut to like a musical montage of everything we did from like 14 to 16.
Do, 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 do.
And Joanne was no different. At 14 years old, on the money pretty much, she went to a fair where she met an 18-year-old carnival worker and promptly ran away with him.
Oh my gosh.
Her parents found her at a hostel with this guy, made her come home. But once she continued, it kind of when she got home, it kind of continued that she was just hanging out with like much older guys. She was drinking with them. She started smoking weed, doing coke. Classic teenage rebellion.
It's a
But when
little bit
her,
more than classic.
I don't know, I feel like drinking and smoking, maybe not like coke for
Well,
us, but
yeah,
this is a
I,
new day and age. I don't know what the kids are doing anymore.
I know what they're doing. I watch Euphoria and yikes.
So maybe it's a little bit more than coke, okay? But her parents, they were like, "Hey, you can't
Can't
do it
do
like
that.
this." So she rebelled even harder to the point where she was like, "I'm going to steal money from you. I'm going to buy booze with
Uh,
the money I steal." She stopped going to school. When her parents and teachers did call her out, she would get physically violent and verbally abusive. Joanne once showed up to school drunk, threw an empty whiskey bottle through a closed window, shattered it, and then hopped out of it.
I, in my day,
Hopped out of a.
no, but I have shown up. I've never shown up to school drunk, but I did senior year come extremely hungover and I slept through the passing period. And English teacher, oh, sweet Mrs. Williams, just let me sleep. She thought I was physically ill, which I was.
You were physically
I
ill.
was physically ill. Do you have pictures of her when she was younger? Did she look much older?
Joanne Dennehy?
Yeah. Yeah. Like, did she
No,
look,
she
no,
did
she
not
just
look.
like average? Okay.
Just normal teenage girl. Yep, did not look much older than what she was. In fact, I would argue that as she got older, she still maintained a very like youthful appearance.
Okay.
So at 15, she met a guy while he was walking his dog. She walked up and she was like, "I love your dog." And they walked and talked and they were like, "Let's meet up again tomorrow." And they did. And they did that pretty much until they were together. John Trainer was 21. He lived with his mom, who was not happy that his adult son was hanging out with a 15-year-old girl, which, same mom.
Naturally. Yep.
He said that he said nothing sexual happened until she was 16, which honestly, like 16 and 22 isn't any better than 15 and 21.
Mm-mm.
Either way, his mom was like, "No way are you and your child bride moving in with me." So, so the two of them ran away at almost 16 and 22 to Lutton. They rented a room in a drug dealer's house and they would shoplift food in order to eat until they found out Joanne was pregnant.
Oh,
So after they find that out, they're able to get a low income based apartment and their daughter Cheyenne was born in 1999. Joanne was able to get state benefits. John got a job as a security guard, which seems like, oh, they're figuring
mhm.
it out. They just needed the
Yeah.
stepping stone. But Joe was not figuring it out. John recalled that she became very cold. She began drinking more. She started to have sex with a man that had just gotten out of prison. So John actually took Cheyenne and moved back in with his mother. But after a few months, Joanne went to him and wanted him to take her back. And he did. And after this moment, it was okay. They found some sense of normalcy for a little while. Joanne actually got a job. She like picked vegetables for a farmer's market. The family moved in together. But little by little, she began drinking again. And eventually she became physically violent towards John. She would hit him. She would also be verbally abusive. She would smash up their stuff in just a drunken rage. And this continued until 2003 when Joanne actually shoved their toddler and she almost fell down a flight of stairs.
Oh, no. It's just as shitty and disgusting and awful no matter if the aggressor is male or female.
Yep.
So, you're still just as much of a piece of shit if that's what you're doing, especially around your kids. Like,
Yep.
ugh.
And John, he did. He agreed. He took Cheyenne and moved back to his mom's again. He was like, nope, I'm gone.
Yeah.
And Joanne disappeared for more than a year after that. And
Bye.
she disappeared because she was in jail for the very first time.
Mm.
She had violently assaulted a man, surprise, and underwent a psychiatric evaluation during which she was diagnosed with antisocial personality disorder. The psych eval said that she was emotionally unstable and prone to unpredictable behavioral explosions. John found this out because she sent him a letter and a visiting order that allowed him to visit her in prison. She was released in 2004 and moved back to her parents, but her mom caught her having sex with strangers in their backyard. And her mom was like, "What are you doing?" Joanne got mad that she was called out and destroyed their sunroom, just annihilated it, and
Mm-mm.
left. Again, she had nowhere to go though, so back to John, convincing him to take her back again. And I think we can talk about that quote a little bit more. Highly manipulative,
Mhm.
really plays a lot into that whole relationship with her and John, just like and her relationship with everyone. Like this is a manipulative human being who does not care about other people. She just wants them to do what she
Mhm.
wants them to do.
Exactly.
Yeah, and at this point it's like 2006. So she's like 24 now. She's still abusing alcohol, she's doing drugs, and she and John get pregnant again. But during her pregnancy, she does not change her lifestyle. So, in
Oh.
addition to abusing John again, she's also abusing this baby she's now pregnant with. She doesn't want to be a mom to her older daughter. Joanne would regularly bring men and women to her house to have sex while she was drunk and high, and she would do it in front of John and her children.
Oh my god.
I know. It's awful. She was self-harming a lot at this point as well. Her sister said she last saw her in 2005 and found that she had been cutting herself and having very casual random sex, drinking, doing drugs, hanging out with ne'er-do-wells in general. But she seemed very angry and she was hurting herself because of that. And there's a quote from her later and it says, "I like to be beaten, stabbed, sliced. I consider myself pretty dangerous, but that keeps me happy."
Oh.
So, yeah. I know not everyone, self harms for the same reason, but she was obviously lashing out at herself, I think. John Triner, though, stayed with her until 2009.
Bless him.
Until one day she pulled a dagger out of her boot and stabbed it into the carpet and yelled that she wanted to, quote, fucking kill someone, unquote. And
Yeah,
yep, for the final time, he took both of his daughters and got out of there. And that was the last time those girls saw Joanne as children.
oh.
So shortly after that, Joanne went back to jail for carrying a blade, shoplifting, and assault. When she was released, she went to this, it's like a business, and they let apartments or rooms in apartment buildings to convicts after they leave jail for
Mhm.
like lower prices. People who are getting back up on their feet,
Is it
essentially.
like a halfway house?
Kind of, yeah. Except
Okay.
that I think they get money from the government and then the government, they have to pay that money to the landlord. Because it used to
Okay.
be, I read that it used to be that the government would just pay it to the people who ran the houses, but something changed to where they gave it to the people, and the people had to give it to the landlord, and that caused like a whole bunch of problems because maybe these people weren't always as responsible as they needed to be.
Mm-hmm.
So she went to this business and she told them that she had just done 13 years in prison because she murdered her father for sexually abusing her since she was 5.
Lies,
Which was a
obviously.
lie. Yeah. True manipulator. She just wanted sympathy from the couple who ran this business, Kevin and Christina Lee. But Kevin wanted to give her a fresh start. He believed her. And so she got one. She got this fresh start. Kevin and Christina Lee were a couple. They had 2 children. They ran this business together. But the business of letting apartments to convicts frequently left them unpaid, which
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying
Yeah.
that's true of everybody in this situation, but it is true of some
Yeah.
of them.
Yeah.
So Kevin came up with this arrangement with Joanne and her new sidekick, Gary Richards, who I'll tell you a little bit more about in a minute, but you should know that Gary was 7'3".
Like actually
Like
7'3".
actually 7'3". One,
Wow. That's
yes.
scary
He
and
was a scary
impressive.
looking dude. But Joanne was just batshit crazy enough to hang out with Gary and to help Kevin out with what he needed. Kevin essentially let them live in these places for free. Well, he let Joanne live in these places for free in exchange for her and her friend Gary to evict tenants that weren't paid.
Okay.
So if they weren't paid or he wanted someone out of a house, maybe they were dirty, maybe they weren't doing something he wanted, Joanne would go in and threaten this person with Gary as backup and make them leave.
Like an enforcer.
Exactly. She was an enforcer. Joanne also started having sex with Kevin in exchange for alcohol. Kevin, who is married with 2 children and a business with his wife. Yep, the same one.
Kevin. Come on,
So
man.
if essentially what we said. If they didn't go in, they'd say, get out or else. One guy recalled that he hadn't been able to pay his rent, so he tried to get a crisis payment from the government in order to pay it, but he wasn't awarded anything. Dennehy, and they called him Gary Stretch because he was so tall, so I call him Gary Stretch a lot in this. Um, he went they went in the first time and they were like, you got to get out. And when he didn't, they came back and Joanne held a knife to his throat and told him to leave. And he just packed one bag and bailed. He was like, I'm out. Nope, this is not cool.
You can't do that to people.
Nope.
No, you can't do that. Even if they're not paying their rent, it freaking sucks. And I can't imagine being in that position because it is your livelihood as a landlord. But you can't, that's not how
You
you get people
can't
out.
like put knives to people's throat and tell them to
No,
leave.
no.
No bueno. So Gary, we call him Gary Stretch. His birth name is Gary Richards. 7'3", born January 27th, 1966, and by age 15, his dad had kicked him out. His whole history is pretty much him coasting through different prisons for various like small time crimes.
Okay.
He was with the same woman for like 13 years, and they had 3 children together. His ex partner, Julie, said that he was a great dad. He was very hands on and loving and caring, but he was not a responsible dad. And the police in the areas that Gary lived in, on and off, they all kind of teased about how he was a terrible criminal because of his size. He is 7'3". He's easily identified. He's not sneaky at all. He would try to like burgle houses, but he couldn't even get in a window,
Because he's
so
7'3".
because
And
he's
people would be like, hey, it's that one guy who's like really freaking
who's
tall.
an actual giant. That's the
Yeah.
one. Yep.
I saw him running away past cars and
Literally,
streets.
one time he actually got away with something because they couldn't get enough people for a lineup that looked the same as him. So, like, he was the only one. Like,
He looks like an adult, like, and normal sized human beings look like tiny children.
yeah, exactly. And it's not like He's like long and lanky. He's just like a large dude. He's a big dude. So, anyways, he ended up going back to jail because Julie left him and he harassed her, earning himself a solid 15 months. But Joanne Dennehy and Gary Stretch were released around the same time and met while they were out on parole. And he would sleep on the couch in her apartment that she got on that neat little deal from Kevin.
I reached the foot of my couch.
Yeah. So he actually, in all of the prisons he went to, he had his own custom made bed because they're only 6 feet long. So they had to make him a bed that they would send to the different prisons that he was in.
They're like, oh, wait, this is his.
Oh, you got your own bed, baby. You know, you've made it, I guess. And this went on for years until 2013 when Joanne committed her first murder. So Monday, March 18th, 2013, Dennehy met 31-year-old Lucas Slabozewski at a mall, and Joanne hit on him. She got his cell phone number and she sexted him later that night immediately, to which he responded. He was into it, and he ended up coming over to her apartment, and shortly after arriving, Joanne, in a surprise attack, stabbed Lucas in the heart with a 3-inch locking pocket knife as soon as he walked in the door, pretty much.
So for no reason.
Nope, no reason at all. She lured him there intentionally to kill him.
What a disgusting piece of garbage.
And Gary was in the apartment when this happened. In his words, he said that he was asleep when it happened. He said he was upstairs and he said he was downstairs. No one knows the exact truth of where he was, but he was there. And Joanne went to him and she was like, you need to help me get rid of him. Bin him. Like, put him in the trash. And he did it.
I didn't even know that was a term.
Bin. Yeah, they call, in England, they call it the bin, is the trash. I was at a wedding and I asked someone where the trash can was, and they asked me if I was from Scotland. And I was like, I don't understand that joke, but it does sound funny, so I laughed. So they put Lucas's body into a trash can. Afterwards, Joanne called Kevin and told him that she needed money to get a car that could move the corpse of the man that she had just murdered. And he gave it to her. He gave her the money.
Oh my God.
So
I can't imagine. Like, I can't imagine, like,
getting
even
that phone call.
One, I can't imagine having a side piece with 2 children already because that's freaking like, being an adult with kids is exhausting
Well, it's not like
anyways.
she was, helping take care of them in any
Yeah,
way.
exactly. But, like, if they were to call me and they were like, "Hey, Connie, I need some money for a car." First, I'd be like, "No, hard pass." But they're like, to dispose of the body of the woman I just murdered, I'd be like, "I'm sorry. I don't know who you're trying to reach, but I have never spoken to you before." Click.
Click.
And then I would go 911.
Nope. He gave her the money.
Mm.
So Gary and Joanne, they went and bought this hatchback. She did not have a driver's license, but Gary did, and he registered it under the name Undertaker and Company. Like the business name.
That's gross.
Yeah, so gross. I am laughing as I say it, but only because it's just, who does that?
It's like the audacity. And also, I know you are not fitting very well in that car, Stretch. This is gross.
Yeah.
This is the thing, like, people need to remember too about, like, everyone thinks serial killers, and 95% of the time they're like men. Men are manipulated, like, they'll manipulate you, they will lure you in. But this is what she's doing. And not only that, she's
manipulating
Manipulating
people
lackeys
to help
around her.
her.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I've read that before. I've read that women tend to like manipulate other people into doing their dirty work
Mhm.
when they are murderers like this, but she not only does the dirty work but then manipulates people to like help her do that. And this is not even her only lackey because she gets more. So they load Lucas's body into the back of this vehicle and they drive it to the outskirts of Peterborough looking for a place to dump the body. And they settled on this ditch near Thorny Pike, where Gary said no one is ever going to find a body that has been dumped here. It was a drainage ditch. They put her there. Before they moved that body, Joanne Dennehy showed it to a 14-year-old girl. The girl said that the body had a black trash bag over it in the bin, and Joe just stood there looking at her and smiling when she opened the lid and pulled back the plastic to show her.
Like she was proud of it. That's
Yep,
gross.
very gross. Roughly 10 days later,
Oof.
on March 27th, Gary and Joanne, they'd been sent to another location to enforce, remove some tenants. And in this one was more of a house where people were living, like they rented a room. They had a room in a house. But Kevin actually wanted two of them out of there. So dutifully they moved in, and instead of the normal force that they did, they actually partied with the tenants for a couple of days. They were all drinking, they were hanging out until everybody went to bed one night. On Friday, March 29th, Friday, March 29th, Dennehy snuck into the room of John Chapman, a 56-year-old widower, alcoholic, and Royal Navy vet who had found himself going through a rough time.
Oh, I hate that.
She went into his room while he was sleeping and stabbed him in the chest 5 separate times. Twice in the heart, once in the neck, severing his carotid artery. She used John's phone to call Gary after she murdered John and sang "Oops, I Did It Again" to Gary at 6:30 in the morning.
I want to beat this bitch's ass.
Yeah, she is
That's disgusting. That's disgusting.
yes. So she goes into the bathroom to clean herself up. And as she's leaving, she runs into another one of the tenants in the house. His name's Leslie Layton. He is a man. She showed him John's body and he took a selfie with the body.
No, he didn't.
Yes. He first thing he did, picked his phone up, took a selfie with it, and then he deleted the photo. But he still did it. And that is one of the most infuriating parts of this case. I bring it up several times because I'm so mad about it. And then they just left John's body. And afterwards, after she was done with John's body, left him in the room, she called Kevin and arranged to meet up with him at the main residence that she normally stayed at. A friend of Kevin's testified that an hour before he went to meet Joanne, Kevin had told him that Joanne wanted to rape him while he was wearing a dress. So the plan was he was going to go over there, and when he got there, he was going to put on a dress and have sex with Joanne. And when he arrived, he did that. He put on this black sequin dress that was Dennehy's. But instead of sex, Joanne stabbed Kevin Lee 5 times in the chest also. He was the only victim with defensive wounds on his hands. And this time, Gary was not the only one that helped her dispose of the body. Leslie, from the other house, drove Kevin's car that he had driven over there while Gary and Joanne rode in the hatchback. At 9:15, a farmer found Kevin's car on fire in a field. So they lit his car on fire and they disposed of his body. Then they took John Chapman's body to the same location that Lucas had been dumped. So now she has two guys doing her bidding.
But Kevin was helping her too, and that's why I don't understand.
It wasn't she she says later that there were a couple of different reasons why she may have killed Kevin. One of the things she was also doing was like redecorating apartments and she felt like she wasn't getting paid for those. But I think she's just a psychopath.
Yeah, she's a psychopath. She was getting paid. She was living somewhere absolutely for free,
Yeah.
and he was giving her money for cars to dispose of bodies,
Yeah.
and
She says later too
Mm.
that she got a taste for it. The word that they used was Moorish. It got Moorish, which means she just wanted to do it more. Which is the same thing we hear with serial killers, that
That's like a
time
bloodlust,
yeah,
yeah.
that time between killings just gets shorter and shorter because they can't control themselves, and that's exactly what has begun to happen.
Because for them, it's all about power, right? Like, no matter
Yeah,
what they do, it's about power, and then they may, it starts like they're manipulating people or they're stealing or they're hurting animals, and it becomes like the ultimate power I can have over someone is whether I choose.
taking their life,
Yeah, if
yes.
I choose whether they live or die. So, it that's gross. I
Yeah,
know I keep saying that, but that's gross.
it is gross. The friend that had testified essentially that Kevin had told him about their rendezvous, they actually ended up telling his wife that that was why they were worried because Kevin hadn't returned home. So they were able to open that missing persons case, and then they closed it the next day because a 68-year-old dog walker found Kevin's body still in the dress with
Oh,
his bottom exposed and something pushed into the anus. So not only did she murder him, but she humiliated him after death. And he
and
was
he has a wife and kids. You have
mhm,
been sleeping with this man for however long prior to this. He's been bankrolling you, and, uh, like, not only does his wife have to 1, her husband has been murdered. 2, her children's father has been murdered. She has to accept that he was having an affair, and then, you know that's a detail they're gonna like, that's a detail that's gonna be out. So then you have to deal with the humiliation of it,
yeah,
and that's
and
just another form of power for her.
I guess he had actually told his wife that he was having an affair, but he had not told
Oh.
her, like, who with or what. So she and we'll talk about this a little bit in a minute, she was able to find out who it was based on their phone bill. And
Mm,
so they
my
told
girl.
them yeah, they launched Operation Darcy to find out what had happened to Kevin. And legitimately, all they had to do was pull these cell phone records because Kevin had told his wife he was having an affair. They reviewed the phone bill, found that Joanne's number was the one most commonly listed, paired that with the information from his friends that they knew about Joanne specifically. And Christina actually called that number and it put her in the area of Kevin's car the same time it was set on fire. So it's just like unraveling one thing after another. When
Mhm.
John and Lucas were inevitably found, they found that the last phone call made on John's phone was to Gary Stretch from Joanne Dennehy while she sang Britney Spears to him. And really, all of the mobile information they found was Gary, Joanne, Leslie, and his disgusting selfie, and Leslie's friend Robert Moore. They were all communicating and plotting these murders on their cell phones that they use every day.
We love a stupid criminal.
We love a dumb criminal. And Robert Moore, this new guy that I've mentioned, was Leslie's friend, but the 14-year-old girl I mentioned earlier was his daughter.
Ugh.
And he didn't even have a record, but he knew about these murders, did not report anything, and he allowed Joanne to stay at his house after they were done covering everything up. He like
After
gave
she had traumatized his daughter.
Yep, after and gave them a place to stay.
Mm-mm.
Not only that, but they were all seen on CCTV driving these vehicles involved with disposing bodies. And the one that was lit on fire, because this is 2013 when this is
Yeah, this
happening. It's
isn't
not
like the 60s.
1992. Yeah,
Yeah.
1960s, whenever. Miraculously, they were able to find Leslie Layton, but not Dennehy. So police showed up to question him, and Leslie pulled the old, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't
Mm.
know anything. Classic. And they leave without him because they hadn't seen his selfie yet, or they didn't know he was even involved. They just knew that he had been in contact with Joanne Dennehy.
Mm-hmm.
And so, as soon as the police leave, he makes phone calls to Joanne and Robert to be like, hey, the police are looking for you. And this is April 1st. So, it's been like less than a couple of days. And police are pretty much on it. They know what's going on, they know who they're looking for. At this time, Gary and Joanne are actually at a friend of Joanne's. They're at her house explaining, well, her name's Georgina. So they're at Georgina's house and they're explaining to her what happened. They showed her, they're like, see, I'm wanted, because now there's like media going out that Joanne Dennehy is wanted in connection with the death of Kevin Lee. And this disgusting monster of a woman got excited because of the way that she had left his body and the idea that it had been found like that. So
Mm-hmm.
before they leave Georgina's apartment, Gary pretty much threatens her like, "Hey, if you tell anyone, you're going to be murdered too." But Joanne was just really matter of fact. She said, "Actually, we're going to get caught and we're going to go to jail for a very long time." So she already knew, but they just chose to keep running.
Mm.
So they're just avoiding police for as long as they can. Robert Moore texts them again and says, hey, you guys can stay with me again. And so we move into April 2nd. They're driving the same hatchback,
Seen all over.
seen everywhere, that has disposed of bodies, that has been on CCTV, and the car has been through the system. It's listed as a vehicle of interest, and guess what? It's registered to Gary Stretch Undertaker and Co. So now they extend that warrant to Gary as well. Because at first it was just Joanne, but now they see that this car is registered to Gary. So they're trying to get them both. They head to a different guy's apartment. And here they take photos. And these photos were notoriously used in the press throughout the search for Joanne and Gary. And they were also used a lot during like the press for the trial that comes. And in these pictures, Joanne is like licking a giant dagger, but she's also standing on a balcony with like her shirt lifted up. You can see her red bra. It's very weird. I guess not as weird as having just like murdered 3 people in 10 days, but
Yeah.
strange that they were like, let's do a photo shoot
Yeah,
after we
that's
just killed a bunch of people. So I jumped the gun a little bit earlier when I explained that their phones were the reason that they were able to be fully linked, because
mhm.
as of April 2nd, John and Lucas's bodies had not been discovered. Joanne and Gary are still making their way around the country, I guess, and they drive into Hereford, and police there tell the other police, because these are all different cities that
Yeah.
they're going to.
Yeah.
So they're all communicating and they're like, hey, we saw this car heading into your area. You need to be aware that these people are dangerous. And the next place they're seen is at a convenience store getting tobacco and whiskey. Just normal stuff. After they buy this, April 2nd at 3:35, Robin Bereza was walking his dog when he felt a blow to his right shoulder. He was a 63-year-old man, just celebrated his 36th wedding anniversary with his wife, and he flung himself around and saw this woman coming at him. and he thought he was being mugged, so he kicked her. But it was like she didn't even flinch. So he asked, "What are you doing?" And she just replied, "I'm gonna fucking kill you." And she chased him down the road. He was able to keep running from her after she stabbed him in the shoulder and the chest. And Gary was just like slowly driving behind them until Dennehy turned around, got back in the car, kissed Gary on the cheek, and said, "Thank you," and then drove away.
W-
They left him with a shattered shoulder blade, a bruised lung, a fractured rib, sorry, and he did not die.
Good for
He
him.
he barely got home, but when he did, he called emergency services and got medical treatment super quickly at 3:42, like 10 minutes later. Police got info that a woman with a star tattoo on her face, because she had a green star tattooed on her right cheek. Maybe it's her left cheek. I'll have to double check. She has a green star tattoo on her face, and she had stabbed a man in the street. 10 minutes. And guess what? 10 minutes after she and Gary left the scene of that crime, she did it again. John Rogers was also out walking his dog around 4 o'clock and recalled a horrifyingly similar incident. He felt a punch to his back, and when he turned around, he said, "What's this all about?" And she started stabbing him, replying, "You're bleeding. I better do some more," while he begged her to leave him alone. He just fell to the ground and waited to die because he had been stabbed more than 30 times in the
Oh my
chest,
God.
stomach, back.
Did he live?
Both of his lungs collapsed and his bowels were perforated and exposed. Fortunately, people saw what had happened. They surrounded him. They got him care, so he also did not die.
Oh my God.
I know.
You're taking me on a roller coaster here, man.
When I said it was like a soap opera, I wasn't lying.
What the hell is wrong with her?
She's nuts. She's crazy. Batshit A plus minus. I don't know. She's crazy.
Why am I getting Harley Quinn vibes?
Yeah, very. She legitimately said, of these two guys that she tried to murder, "I tried to kill more people than Bonnie and Clyde, and my only regret is that those two guys lived. That's not my fault."
Uh,
Like, what?
mm-mm.
So finally, we're about to catch these dingbats.
Thank
They
God.
they stayed in Hereford after that happened. They stayed in the same town. So police caught them while they were meeting with another criminal to do more crime that I'm not even sure what they were doing.
More
But I'm not
criminal things.
surprised.
Crimes against humanity.
But they saw the flashing lights and they tried to run, and they got about 16 miles before they were finally stopped. They're all arrested within 20 minutes of stabbing the second guy, John Rogers. And when they get to the station, Joanne Dennehy just continues to be like the most disgusting human being on the planet. She flirts with all of the officers, men and women. She like begs them not to put her in baggy clothes. She's like, "What am I in for? Attempted murder and murder is nothing. It's like going down for a Sunday roast. Easy. It could be worse." She said that to the police. How could it be worse? You're literally a serial murderer. What is a worse thing to be caught for?
Uh,
And she continued. She told them that she's been on the run. "I've had half a bottle of whiskey this morning, the expensive stuff, $80 a bottle." She was put in a solitary unit because they were like, "You are a danger to yourself and others." And that would be the extent of her talking. Because once she starts being interviewed by police, she answered no comment to everything. And
mm,
Gary did the same. But he did acknowledge that he had been a getaway driver. That's it, though. She was charged with the murder of Kevin Lee and the attempted murders of Robin Bereza and John Rogers on Saturday, April 13th. They had been arrested on the 3rd, and that happened to be the same day that a farmer finally found the bodies of Lucas and John in that drainage ditch. But fortunately, they had the people responsible. Leslie was finally also arrested because they found that disgusting selfie with the corpse of John Chapman in his phone. Robert Moore was also arrested and charged with assisting. On Wednesday, May 8th, 2013, Joanne Dennehy was charged with 3 counts of murder, 2 counts of attempted murder, 3 counts of prevention of the lawful and decent burial of a dead body, and she entered no plea. Nothing. Gary Stretch, Leslie Layton, and Robert Moore all pled not guilty. So while they're awaiting trial, they're in separate prisons. Gary and Joanne wrote to each other, and their relationship was not sexual, but Gary definitely thought that it could become that, because in one of his letters he wrote, and I'm going to read it word for word. It says, "Yo, wifey, thanks for your letter, babe. I'm writing this letter, sat in the court cells today, waiting for the verdict. This case has been about the serial killer called JD. We are the new Bonnie and Clyde, so they say. You're not a killer, you're a woman with major issues being bloodthirsty. Hey, hold on, you're not a vampire, are you? How's the book coming on? I want the copyrights, okay?" And like he keeps going. He says, "They'll be here just to see you, so stand strong. It'll soon be here, babe. And then you get to say your thing, the speech of a lifetime to be heard all over the country. So make it a bloody good one. So looking forward to seeing you, babe. Well, your sexy smile and thoughts of evil eyes. Oops, meant to say angel eyes. You have a dirty and dark mind. See you soon. Your biggest supporter. Love you always. Love Undertaker. Hubby for lifey." And there are a ton of, I know it's so cringy, like it's gross.
Ugh.
Um,
Ugh.
and they're all like this. All these letters he wrote to her are
Wifey
essential.
for lifey.
Bleh.
Ugh.
Uh, they're all essentially telling her that it wasn't her fault, that she has nothing to worry about him being her accomplice. He's loyal. He would do anything for her. He was sad that they never got to consummate their love. You get the idea.
Mm.
But Joanne, in another more evidence that she's fucking crazy, she forwarded all of those letters to Julie, his long-term partner, who he had also been writing to.
What a bitch.
And Julie replied to Joanne, and Joanne wrote this back. It said, "Dear Julie, I have received your letter and I would like to rest. Gary did not go along with me out of fear for you. Mine and Gary's relationship was based on past background. I had no idea you even existed until in court. My legal team informed me of a recorded phone call to you." And she just goes through and tells him that she loves and respects Gary. She would never ask him to do what he did for her. She loves him, and contrary to what he's telling her, he has very strong feelings. There were no sexual relations. Her love is platonic. She would never force him to do anything. But Julie had been getting notes from Gary that was saying Joanne is evil. He helped because he was scared of her. He was scared for his children and for her. So Julie was just like, nope, cut him right the fuck off.
Bye.
Which, good for you, Julie. You deserve better.
I think the reason she forwarded those letters to Julie was because she was pissed off that he had someone else too.
Maybe. I
Like it
also
was
think
more of a
she's
like
just
spiteful bitch
mad
thing. Yeah.
because he pled not guilty. Because she tells them in trial, I'll tell you this in just a second.
Okay.
We're almost there. Those letters, they fully fudged him because his lawyers were trying to paint the picture that he was scared for his life. And he felt like he had to help Dennehy. But now, Julie made those letters public. She gave them to the media.
At Atta
Yeah.
girl.
So they went to trial and they were like, yeah, you obviously did this because
You're weird.
you're weird. Yeah. They went to trial in September of 2013. It lasted until February of 2014. On February 10th, 2014, Gary was found guilty of 1 count conspiracy to commit attempted murder and 3 counts of preventing the lawful and decent burials of 3 human bodies, which meant that he has to serve at least 19 years before he's eligible for parole. And if he is released in 19 years, he'll essentially be on house arrest until he's dead.
Oh, good.
Leslie Layton was found guilty of 2 counts of preventing the lawful and decent burial. He was given 14 years, but 7 of those are in prison and 7 of those are on house arrest. And then Robert Moore received 3 years, 1.5 in prison, and 1.5 on house arrest.
Mm.
Literally in trial, she turned to Gary and Leslie and told them that she took their murder charge for them and she called them a bunch of fucking idiots in front of everyone. Then, when she got her sentencing, she yelled bollocks at the judge after she was sentenced to that natural life term, and the judge called her a sadistic serial killer. So while she was in prison in 2013, in 2014, she plotted an escape attempt. And she got busted. So she's been in a high security unit for quite some time. Never really explained her motive. She only said that the men she murdered shouldn't have flirted with her. They shouldn't have pissed her off. But she did tell a psychiatrist, I killed to see how it would feel, to see if I was as cold as I thought. Then it got Moorish and I got a taste for it.
Mm.
Yep. She's also the first woman serial killer to use a knife as a weapon.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. So that's Joanne Dennehy, a real
She's
piece of work.
real piece of shit.
Yeah, dude, I know.
Jesus.
Hold on. We'll do a Zencaster ad.
Cleanse the palate.
Let's cleanse the palate by telling you about the best, easiest way to make a podcast. You can go to zencaster.com, ZENCASTR/pricing, and enter the code gruesome with a capital G for 30% off your first 3 months. It is very easy. You do it all in browser. You get 1080 video content that you can upload to YouTube. You can use it for whatever you need, your Patreon. It makes making a podcast insanely easy, and we think you should do it. So,
We've done it before just hanging out. Like,
yes, sometimes we just Zencaster instead of Zoom because
yeah.
it's easier than Zoom. It is easier
Yeah.
than Zoom.
And if you have a co-host, if you have someone you're interviewing, they don't even have to have an account. You just literally send them a link. They can click on it and hop in. More than one person can be on the call. It's really awesome. We're going to integrate St. Karen as soon as her Louisiana butt gets internet. We can once
No, that is a thing, though. We've heard from people that they're trying to use Zoom to record
don't use
podcast
Zoom.
content, and you can't. The sound is not there. It's
No.
not good.
And it's the
Use
automatic.
Zencaster.
Yeah, it's the automatic post-production for me. So use
There
their
you have it.
code. And man, that was wild.
I know. I was like, I felt crazy writing it. I was like,
It was like she liked it, so she was getting frenzied. Like
yes.
she was getting very frenzied, very sloppy, very like, I just have to do this. I don't care.
And
Like,
they just let her, and
yeah.
like Gary encouraged it even, like her getting back in the car after she stabs a guy and saying, "Thank you." That's terrible. That's
He
the
could
worst.
it's not like she was 7'3". He could have easily stopped her whenever he wanted to. Whenever
The
he wanted to.
rumor about him, and I don't know that it's a rumor, but Julie, his ex-partner, said like that he was a big weenie.
Oh,
Like,
like a gentle giant.
yep. Yeah, like he stole stuff and he would like
So he's
steal
not a
money, but he was not a brute. Like he
yeah, he's not a
almost
violent criminal other
no.
than this. Ugh,
Yes.
that's unfortunate.
Yeah. It's just
I don't understand the murder of Kevin. Like,
I
not that I understand the random murders, but, like, I can be like, "Okay, I get, like, she
I think
just
it was
wanted
just
to."
power, like the
Yeah.
humiliation afterwards, the "I've done this and now I wanna do it again." She had told Kevin about the murders, Kevin had given her money. That was just another way to cut someone out that she felt like she could cut out, I think.
Ugh, that's awful. And her children.
Yeah, so her daughter is an adult now, Cheyenne, and, she recently reached out to her mom as, like, when she was 19 and sent her a letter and talked to her for the first time since, like, not seeing her when she was, like, 5 or 6 or however old she was when they left. And she said that her mother shows no remorse and she does not care for the mother for the person she became. She misses the mom that she had because she felt like she did have some good memories of her,
Mhm.
like that she was just a big kid, but that person is not she does not wanna see that
Man, they
person.
lucked out getting the hell out of there because she would have killed them, all 3 of them.
Yeah, absolutely, and, like, I know that that relationship started yucky, but good for John because he didn't
Yeah.
deserve that, and neither did those girls.
None of them did. That's what's aw ugh. And if you are I'm with you, taking a selfie, like, immediately being like, "Oh my god, look what you did. Quick, let me snap a
Well,
selfie."
like, when the only other person is singing "Oops, I Did It Again" over a phone call to be like, "Hey, come help me because oops, I did it again," and then he's gonna take his phone and do a selfie with him?
Mm-mm.
That's disgusting.
Yeah.
And then he deleted it thinking that, like, forensics would never see that again, but guess what? It just goes to a different little secret or cycle bin on your phone. It's still there,
I know
friends.
something you don't.
I know something you will never know. Ugh. Yes, it was infuriating. That, that book that I read, it was, it was an interesting book. It had a lot of really good facts. The author talks a lot of shit. Like like, which well deserved, but I don't know. I think if you are into reading books and you want even more details from this case and more, like, stuff that he's read, you should read one from him. It's like Christopher what did I say? Christopher Barry D. And you'll be like, "Wow, this guy is, interesting."
Hmm.
He doesn't pull any punches. He's just straight to the
I
point,
like that. Those are the
very,
type of books
like
that I like.
yeah, it was not a fun read, but it was a entertaining read, I will say.
I think you could read books about, like, serial killers and not that you are entertained by the crime because that is a little strange,
No, just
but
the way he wrote,
yeah.
it was almost
It's
like
you can have I mean, there I don't know how to say it, like, you can not be like, "Oh my god, this is so awesome, I wanna read about all of this," but you can love the way someone writes and be like, "This is a dope way to put this."
yeah, it kinda sounded like if you were like, if a podcast was a book, like, I could see
Oh, I
him
love that.
yeah, I could see
I
him
love
reading
that.
that in, like, maybe a long form podcast of seasons.
I
Just an
love that.
idea for you, Christopher D. It was good though.
Mm.
Um, and then there were some of the judge wrote, man, she just, like, blasted all of these people in her, like she was reading out their charges and stuff and what they would serve. I
It
was
was a girl judge?
yeah.
A
Yeah, it was
Love to
awesome.
see it.
It was awesome.
Oh my god.
Are you okay? You gonna make it? Let that
No.
wear you out?
Ugh, I'm mentally exhausted from everything going on in the world, and that just oof.
I know, it has been what a week.
Yeah. without I don't like getting political ever, but, it has been a crazy week. This is your weekly reminder to check in with your friends, make sure they're doing okay.
Make sure they're sleeping because Connie hasn't been.
I haven't been. I I have not been sleeping with everything going on in the world, and no, it is, like, I know obviously I'm not a dumbass. Like, I know it is way worse than me having trouble sleeping, like, thinking about this, but it is just this is not the world that I want my kids to grow up in, and it's a very sobering thought to think about, and it is affecting me. It's
And that's fair. That's okay. It's allowed to, I mean, you're allowed to be affected by things even if they're not directly happening to you. You can see
Mm.
that thing and still go, that's awful.
Yeah, and
And want to do more or wish you could do more and or feel helpless like, "Oh, I can't do anything really other than, you know."
and um this is the first invasion, conflict, war that has literally we're getting live play-by-plays on TikTok, on Instagram, like the media, like it's I haven't seen anything like this. I saw one post that was like Google Maps like spoiled a tank invasion because they were like traffic jam. There's a traffic jam ahead. And it's like it's insane. Everything is insane right now, and I feel like everything went from 0 to 100, and I'm having if you see this video on our Patreon, you'll be like, "Damn, Connie, you do look like you haven't slept." It's
You
just
look tired. No one wants to hear that.
yeah, it's whew. But I don't know what else good to say. Tell me something tell me something funny, I need it.
Honestly, dude, I don't really have anything funny. My week was kind of like gnarly too.
I I didn't realize February is so short, and I think it's kind of messing me up. It's like I feel like
Those
there should be more of
It's
this
not
month.
even that short. It's just like 2 days.
It just
Like
feels like an eternity to me.
those 2 days really um really throw you off when they're not
Mhm.
there. Like you're like, "Oh, 28. Wait a minute. What?"
Yeah, and then I said at the beginning, I've been watching Euphoria just as like a, "Hey, I wasn't that bad as a kid." It could have been way worse.
It could have
But
been way
even
worse
like
than this fabricated television show.
the ending of that had me like, "Damn, I just wanted something." I watched so much Simpsons and King of the Hill like in the middle of the night. I'm like, anything. I need to watch anything funny, lighthearted. Bob's Burgers. Where you
I
at? Like,
feel like Euphoria is to like teens now, like as Gossip Girl was to us.
mhm,
That's the
dude.
vibe. Like, why did like they didn't need to revamp Gossip Girl? They could have just done Euphoria.
I agree, and I am a Gossip Girl die hard. It is my like, it's my bread and butter. I love it. It's a show that I can rewatch. That and One Tree Hill. One Tree Hill's a little cheesy for me sometimes, but Gossip Girl,
I never
mm.
watched One Tree Hill, but I did love Gossip Girl. I love Blair.
I love Blair. I like to
She's
think of myself as a Blair, but I may be a
we're
Georgina.
I was like, we all want to be a Blair, but we're
Everyone
all
wants yeah, I'm more of a Georgina. Although I have these, like, fleeting memories of high school, like, where I think maybe I was a Serena, where I was very into my own self and everyone hated me. So, I could have also
I didn't even watch it in high school. I didn't watch
Oh,
it
I
until
did.
I was 25 when I had just had my first kid. I was on maternity leave and I was just laying in my bed with my laptop and my baby watching Gossip Girl every single hour of the day.
And you wonder why
That's
she's dramatic.
yeah, I know. That's
It's
why.
ingrained.
It's because I subconsciously fed her Blair and Serena drama.
I I remember when we went through our Laguna Beach phase,
Oh,
where
I
we
did love
watched
Laguna
a
Beach.
lot of Laguna Beach, and I remember I don't know why this is such a vivid memory for me. We were at a Ball State party and I was sitting on the stairs talking to this guy who I'm not even going to name drop him because it was extremely creepy that he was as old as he was speaking to me for as long as it was. Like looking back now, I'm like, this was kind of predatory behavior because
Like 16 and 22.
I think he was older than that. I saw him at like,
Ah!
yeah, it was
I
very,
don't remember.
we'll talk about it afterwards. But I remember like in my head, like, have you ever, maybe this is gonna make me sound like a psycho, and I apologize, but have you ever been, like, having a scenario, like, experiencing a scenario, but you're also simultaneously like, remembering a scene from a show, and you're like, "This could be something like
This
that.
is that moment for
This
me.
could be."
I can see that. I don't know that I have had many of those, but I absolutely it's like main character energy.
Yeah,
Like,
it was a
I'm
very
the main character of this
yeah,
moment.
I'm, like, sitting
Yeah.
on the stairs, or, like, a stoop, maybe it wasn't even a stairs now that I think about it, I can't really
Stoop
remember.
kid.
And I was just sitting there thinking about Kristen and Steven sitting on sitting on the rocks and she's like talking about how she just can't do this anymore. And I'm talking to this guy who's way too old for me to be talking to because we were the youngest kids hanging out in that group for the most part. And I was just thinking like you're right, main character scene energy. But now I'm like, this was creepy and I was intoxicated and you were trying to take advantage of me.
That was dangerous. That was a dangerous scenario. That was not Laguna Beach.
It was
That
not
was
Laguna
Laguna
Beach.
Beach in the sense that you were about to
Like how
be
to
murdered
catch a
by,
predator.
like yeah.
It was like Chris Hansen energy, not like Stephen kept. And it
Oh,
and I should preface this for if any of our friends from that age, like that time, listen, it wasn't like any of our group of friends. It was some rando that was there that like had never been there before. And I was like, hey, you're new.
oh, you are so dangerous.
I was. This is why, like, when we were growing up, Meg was Mama Meg because she had to be. I prevented Megan from having such a good time because I was a fucking train wreck.
I prevented Megan from having such a good
Because she and you know, and
You kept me safe in that regard, so really, who's taking care of
but you know what?
it?
Everyone needs a friend like you because I remember distinctly like being at another party, like in like, and one of our friends we had grown up with was like trying, like and I was a train wreck, so I was like hammered, and this guy was like had like like ushered me into the room and was like trying to kiss like kiss me, and you knocked on the door and you went, "Hey, uh-uh," and drug me out of there. So like
Look, I bet my kids can tell you times when I did that exact same thing to
you're
them.
like, and you weren't
Hey,
even saying it to me. You were like saying it to him. And it's like everyone needs a friend like Meg. For every train wreck needs the train track. Just kidding.
You know, I learned a lot of things at that point in my life. Whoops, sorry, hit a pencil. I don't know if you could even hear that, but I
I
heard
did.
it.
That's fine.
Okay.
You were
Memories.
great. You're so great.
You were great too. You were
I was a
great
lot
too.
of fun.
You were very fun.
I'm not now it's like all of the anxiety of all the things that I've done as a kid is like manifesting in my 30s and I'm like, I can't do anything.
It's dangerous.
It's dangerous.
It's dangerous to go alone. Here, take this. And it's just me.
That's what it is. And some things never change. When we reunited after our lost years back together, and the first night we went out, I was like, Meg, we're going hard in the paint. We were asking some cover band if they knew any Lizzo in the middle of a
Yeah, we
high
did go.
society.
We did go too a little hard in the paint there.
You were like,
Whew.
you puked before we got in the Uber, and I was yelling at the guy, just she's fine.
And we wonder why I don't drink anymore. I'm just kidding. That wasn't it. But sometimes I think about that and I'm like, yeah, that's fair.
That was a very my favorite memory of that night is meeting your husband and him thinking that you and I were more than friends.
What I had talked about Connie, but my husband had never met Connie, and then we met and we did, girl stuff. We went to the bathroom together, and he legitimately thought that we were lesbians together, and like that had happened at some point in our
Yeah, like,
lives.
we were
And
long
I was
lost
like,
lovers and, like, reuniting the flame. He even asked my husband, he's like, "Should we be worried?"
yeah, and I was like, no, no, we're just, but in all fairness, I don't think he had ever seen me hang out like
Yeah.
with a friend, like, outside of, like, playing board games at our house or something.
Yeah, and my
So
husband was like, "Look, Connie's weird, so nothing that's going on in that bathroom right now that they're talking about is out of the ordinary."
just let it happen.
But
He
that's
gets
how
it
deep our
now.
love is. My parents sat me down, I was, like, 17 to, like, try to encourage me, which great for them, like, shout out for them, like, not, like, having a welcoming home, but they thought Megan was my girlfriend.
Yep. My mom didn't necessarily think you were my girlfriend, but asked me on a regular basis if I was a lesbian because I only ever hung out with, like, you, and that was it. And I was like, "No, mom, no."
But we'd
Mm.
have great taste if we were because we were
A plus taste.
it was my
Oh.
most fulfilling relationship of high school, though, if I have to say.
It was my most fulfilling yeah, I would agree with that. Same. Big same.
On that note, we'll see you guys next week
Enjoy
as
that
we
romance.
as we continue our tour of Europe.